back to National 5 PE. Hope you had a lovely Christmas and New Year and you are safe and well. We're going to start a series of online lessons, and learning this term is going to look slightly different. How it's going to operate is every Monday I will post a lesson, and during that lesson at various points you'll have to pause the video. You'll be required to complete all of the work from this lesson on Google Classroom, and that will be due for the following Monday. Now, if you get stuck or you need help, you can message me on Google Classroom, and I will also host a live Google Meet every Wednesday from 12 till 1, where you can come on and speak to me about any issues or problems that you may have. Today's lesson is going to look at how we answer evaluate questions. Evaluate questions are the hardest questions that you will face in National 5 PE, and they are specifically aimed at pupils who are looking to achieve an A or a B. For those of you that go on to study PE at higher, you will become very familiar with evaluate questions. By the end of today's lesson, we'll hopefully be able to identify specific aspects of our training programme which worked well or didn't work well, and we'll be able to use correct terminology when making our judgments. Also, we'll be able to follow a specific structure to help us achieve all of the marks in the question, and that structure is identify, judgment and value, or IJV. So what is evaluation? Evaluation is a word that you will have often heard used in school and in your day-to-day lives. Evaluation in the dictionary is defined as to find or judge the quality or value of something. Basically what that means is evaluation is about making judgments about something after they have happened. Because it is taking place after something has happened, that means it's really important when we write these answers that we write in the past tense. If you take the example of Match of the Day, for example, on a Saturday night, the pundits will sit down with Gary Lineker and they will look at specific things which happened during a game and make evaluations about that particular team or individual's performance. Evaluate questions in PE need you to look back on something and say whether it was successful or not, and then explain how that impacted on your performance during your training programme. This is the question that we're going to focus on today, and the question is evaluate the effectiveness of your personal development programme. To answer this question, we need to make 6 points or more because it's worth 6 marks, and we have to look back at the end of our training programme and pick out specific things that worked or didn't work, and then evaluate, make judgments about them. Why did they work, or why did they help you be successful in your training programme, or why did they not work, and why did they not help you progress as much as you would have wanted to. So, how do we answer evaluate questions at National 5 PE? To answer evaluate questions and to access all of the marks fully, we need to follow a 3-step process. The first part of this process is to identify something. The second part is then to give a judgment about the thing that you have chosen, the thing that you have identified. And the last part is to then explain to the marker what was the value of this, how did it help you or how did it hinder your progress. We're now going to look at each of these stages in turn and give you a clearer understanding of what you have to write for each of the stages. The first stage of our 3-step process is to identify something. For this question, we need to pick out a specific part or feature of your training programme. Some things that we could talk about here was our training partner, methods we used to gather data, ways in which we got feedback, the different approaches that we used and whether or not they were successful, the amount of time that we spent on training programmes, so how long did the programme last, how long was each session, the variety that we had within our programme, did we have enough variety, did we get bored, the goals that we set, our long-term and our short-term goals, did we meet them, and also how we can monitor and check for improvements in our performance. These are all things that we can pick out specific aspects of our training programme that we can then give judgments on. The second stage of the 3-step process is to give a judgment. Now, once we've picked something out, so if we take, for example, our training partner, we then need to use language which shows to the marker that we're going to evaluate, that we're going to make judgments. And some key words and phrases that we need to include in our answer here could be things like useful, effective, ineffective, helpful, beneficial, good, bad, unhelpful, limited. These are words which show clearly to the marker that you are evaluating, that you are making judgments about specific things from your training programme. The third part of our 3-step process is to give the value, and this is the part that pupils find difficult. So, if we identify the first part of the process about training 3 times a week, and we've said that that was effective, so the effective is our judgment, and that's us using the correct terminology. So we could say something like, training 3 times a week was effective because. After the because, we then have to give the value. What was the impact? How did that affect your training program? And we could say here, this was important because it allowed me to fully recover and ensure that I was fresh for each of the training sessions. This meant that I could then put in 100% effort to improving my fitness in each of the training sessions. That level of detail there is what allows us to access the marks. So we have to identify something, we have to make a judgment as to whether or not it was useful or not. Did it help us? Did it not? And then we have to tell us why. And that bit where we say why is what gets us the marks here. Right, so we're now going to look at some examples and show you an example answer with the correct structure. The example here has spoken about, it has identified training partner. So they've said, my training partner during my program was. The second stage is to make a judgment useful. So was useful because, and here is the value. This is the bit that accesses the marks, as we're telling the marker why that was useful to us. He was of a similar level of fitness to me. This meant that we could push each other during our CRE sessions and I could keep up with him, which helped me to stay motivated. The second example that we're going to look at is from a skills program, and this person has picked out repetition drills. They have said, using repetition drills during my program was effective because this allowed me to focus on one skill. As I could focus on my layup by practicing the skill over and over, this meant that if I missed a shot, it didn't matter, as it wasn't a game situation and there was no pressure from defenders and it didn't cost my team any points. Now it's your turn. You're going to have a go at using the 3-step process, identify, give a judgment, and then explain why that was important or why it didn't help you improve. Now, it's a 6-mark question, so you need to do this 6 times. There's lots of things that you can evaluate here. You can evaluate your warm-ups, your cool-downs, your training partner, different approaches, shadow, repetition, fartlek, continuous, depending on if it's fitness or if it's skills, the tests that you use to gather information, how you got feedback, was it useful, was it not, why was it useful, why was it not, did you have enough variety, how long did you spend on your PDP, how long your training sessions were, when you trained, the goals that you set, and how you monitored. So there's lots and lots of things that we can pick out, specific features from our training program that we can then give judgments on. Now, if you write about, for example, repetition drills being a positive impact, if they were effective, you can't then write that they were ineffective. You can't write 2 things about the same specific feature or aspect of the program that you are talking about. Please submit your answer on the Google Classroom, on the Google Doc, and I will mark it and get back to you. As usual, if you have any questions or you get stuck, please feel free to give me a private message, or I'll be available on Google Meet on Wednesday.